You're listening to She's Got Drive podcast, the podcast that inspires women to be the driver in their own life through the life and stories of Black women with drive. And I'm your host, Shirley McAlpine. I'm a business consultant, an executive coach, and a leadership facilitator, working with people and organizations to live their lives by design and not default. Welcome back to another episode of She's Got Drive. And in this episode, we have someone who has been working in tech for so long that she remembers in the early days when she got interested in computers in the early days when she was a kid. Do you remember those computers that had a black screen and just white writing? She remembers those. I remember those. Her career has been long and successful, and I'm really excited that she is spending time. She spent time with me, and we get to hear what her story has been. Not only is she talks about starting in tech, she talks about stepping out of her career to have her children and stepping back into her tech career as well, what it's like to be a woman in tech. You know, we cover all of that, and also some life-changing moments for her that she really beautifully shares with me. And so I am excited about bringing her to you. But before I start to tell you more detail about who she is, I wanted to just say to you a couple of things. One is, thank you for everyone who's been in contact, and when you send me messages and tell me what you're getting, you know. Or I had one listener reach out to me and say that she's binge listening the episodes and it's like I'm her life coach, and that means so much to me because this podcast is, I wanted it to do a couple of things. I want, through the stories of these amazing women, for us as Black women to hear those stories and see ourselves in those stories, and then say, I can do this, and I can take that and I can apply that to my life. And also when I put out the solo episodes of the various models, lessons, etc., is that you can take those things and you can run with it too. So it feeds my soul, actually, when I get that, and it tells me that we're on the right track in terms of what we're putting out on the podcast. And so I appreciate you letting me know what you're getting. I appreciate you letting me know the impact that it's having on you. I'm more committed to even keep growing the show at multiple levels as well, and expanding the platform of She's Got Drive. So thank you so much for everyone who's been in contact, and thank you so much for being a regular listener as well. If you're new, thank you for joining and subscribing and listening, and I hope that you get real value out of it. The other thing I wanted to then say is, if you are getting value, can you rate and review the show? The ratings and the reviews are significant in increasing people's access to the podcast. Okay, so let me introduce you to my guest, Michele Grant. Now, Michele is a strategy and operations executive business consultant who specializes in digital tech projects, programs, and portfolio management. She has, for the last 18 years, delivered sustained results and effective change for Fortune 500 companies across a wide range of industries. She is a partner at EAC, which is a tech consulting firm that she works with her husband and other partners. And some of their past clients is CBS, VIACOM, JP Chase, Merrill Lynch, Boeing, Coach, US federal courts, you know, so this is wide ranging who they work with. And she has been she's also in her outside of that, she has her children, which she talks about in the podcast. So I won't tell you more about that, but she's also a member of the Lincoln Center Young Patrons, the Manhattan Yacht Club, the James Beard Foundation, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Jack and Jill of America. And so she does a lot of her volunteering, philanthropy through those organizations. I know you're going to enjoy our conversation. There's so much in it. So I give you Michele Grant. Michele, thank you so much for being a guest on She's Got Drive.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you today.
We met some time ago, And one of the things that struck me and why I wanted you on the guest is your really long career in the tech world, from a very early tech days too. And that transition, you have kind of been working in that transition to where we are now around tech. And being a woman in tech is still fairly unique. So I really wanted to have you on the show because you bring a very unique experience and perspective. And I'm really curious about how you came to do that, what it's like to be you doing the work that you're doing, and also how you're marrying that with your whole life as well, and getting the balance.
Great. So am I.
So then let's start with you sharing what you do, and then we'll look at how you came to do what you do.
So my interest in technology, as you know, I'm in the technology space, really began at a very, very young age. And thankfully, my parents were very supportive of my budding curiosity in the technology space. We spent a lot of time talking around where technology was going when I was younger, and it was just beginning, just a new concept for everyone, and I'm sure for them as well. The ability to be provided my wildest dreams, which was a Tandy computer at the time, and really be able to take it apart and break it down and get all of my other family members involved. They actually never seen anything like it at the time, and they were all both very supportive of my curiosity. Coming from a healthcare, and my mother was a doctor of pharmacy, my father was a chemical engineer. Definitely think that they understood this was another aspect to science that was just budding and beginning, and my curiosity was definitely fulfilled during that time. As I got older, realized that this was actually going to be a career opportunity for me. And, I loved leadership. I loved planning. As a kid, I was a very organized child. As I started to move through high school, I realized this is something that I really have an affinity towards, and it is a talent of mine, and I can utilize all of my genetics in science and channel it into the computer science space. And so that's what I majored in college, and decided while I was in college and interning that I can not only bring a lot to that technical space, but also the business side of technology, which many people are not familiar with, but that is obvious the crux of, or the basis of, where technology really brings value to a corporation or any organization. And so definitely wanted to go into that space.
It's really hard to imagine what a Tandy computer was like, right? Because, when we go, I think you should Google it, people, and to see how far we've come, and it really is, we have come a long way. I can't remember what ours wasn't Tandy. It was like a BBC star computer. It was so basic, and then I remember the games were like a black screen with white dots and the tennis was. Exactly. I mean, right? It was that. It was so basic. To see that at an early age, and then to see the possibility of you in your career, and then quite early on, kind of seeing your talents and your strengths coming together. At what point did you really think, okay, this is going to be definitely going to be the work that I'm going to be doing? This is it. I've landed in it.
During my high school years is when the computer science, career really became relevant, and I think where people realized that this was going to be a new industry and a new career path that people can actually take. Prior to then, this was not, even part of your options. I realized that there weren't a lot of females in the space at the time, and you always, heard of the IBMers, and they were always kind of branded as, men, middle age, and it wasn't a new, young, up and coming industry or field. And right. So I spent a lot of time just looking into it in high school. And although my parents and my mother specifically hoped that I would follow her in her footsteps in pharmacy, I realized that my love and affinity, my personality worked better in the technology business space as opposed to healthcare. when I realized that you are essentially paving your own path and going to the parts unknown, I should say, as opposed to my other family members who are all in healthcare or chemical engineering or chemistry, I should say. I think very exciting for me. That's who I am. I like to go in the direction that is not necessarily well traveled already, and really exploring what is available to me and just to women in general. And I felt that I wanted to take that path. And so I did. And I did extremely well. My GPA in college was just phenomenal. And I think if I continued in a different space, whether it was pursuing medical, healthcare, it would have been very different. Right. Because it just wasn't an interest of mine. My curiosity always remained in technology. And so when I started, I think my advisor at the time said, you're going to know right away if this is for you because your grades will tell you. With obviously being very dedicated and committed to doing well, and also having just a general passion for it, I was very, very successful. And I actually ended up minoring in mathematics as well. Wow. So it really came together for me. My very first role actually explored more of a internet marketing space where I was a manager. Understanding the technology and, of course, having the exposure to marketing was quite interesting because it's kind of like where you marry how you actually grow a company, right, through marketing, and how technology assists that or supports it. And that is really was a great start for me because that is really what technology should do. It should support the goals and growth of a company and where the company sees itself, and the company should be innovating and building in that direction. And the technology should drive that. So now we've come so far that everyone is essentially saying that every company is truly a technology company, just in a different industry.
Right. And because it's so integral to what we do. I mean, you can't really separate work from technology, and at all levels actually of the organization, and at all levels, and whether you are an individual entrepreneurs or whether you're in large corporations, you can't do it without tech. I mean, it's just
and it's really the underpinning of everything you do if you're working with outside customers and clients, right? Even your communication is going to be dependent on technology now. So as I said, all companies are so dependent on their technical platforms, applications, and everything to drive their business and what they do, not only from an operational perspective, but also from a revenue generation standpoint. And that is really a beautiful thing, knowing that I recognize that at a very young age.
Yes, I loved what you said. Your grades were born out of your passion and your love of technology. And so when we choose something that's really aligned with what we love, then we are more likely to produce better results. And we're more likely to flourish versus when we are in a space where we're struggling or we don't we don't like it, we don't love it, it's just, we don't want to do it. It's very difficult to produce great results in that context. And that's in anything we're doing.
Agreed, completely. I think it's important as a young child as well as young adult that, those are areas of validation. Those are areas where you realize that, okay, I am going in the right direction. It gives you some kind of reinforcement of your thoughts and what you're looking to do and what you're interested in. I don't think that it is natural to pursue something and feel that you are in the right direction or you're taking the right path in life if you're not achieving and you're not obtaining positive results.
I believe everyone has a talent, right? And the thing is, it's for you to find the thing that you have a strength and a talent in, and then to grow that talent. Yeah. And then we have multiple talents, but the thing what are you great at and what do you love being great at? And then focus in on that versus what are you great at and doing what you're great at, but you hate doing it. Because that's another thing that lots of people do.
Yes, absolutely. Because you can be very good at something, very well trained, educated, etc., and you can definitely achieve and accomplish what the expectations are in that particular career. But it doesn't mean that you will really grow to the levels that you would want to be as you progress in your career, if you do not have that innate passion to think outside of the box, that's where creativity comes. And true leadership requires creativity, vision, and all of that. That is a combination of your talents, your achievements, your experience, your interest in the space.
Right. Quite early on, you were able to see the possibility of this career, and it's turned into one of the biggest growing career paths in the last 20 years, without a doubt. You know, the tech space, you know, that's an understatement. What were the types of roles that you took on, and then where are you now, and what are you doing now?
So, as I mentioned, you know, as an internet marketing manager at one of the country's largest book subscription companies, Bookspan, at the time was owned by Bertelsmann, which was a German conglomerate. And they also owned Time Warner AOL at the time. And I was able to begin in a very strategic role where I managed the top 3 book clubs in America: Doubleday Entertainment, Mystery Guild, and Black Expressions. And I had such a great experience there, really finding a place at the table very early on in my career. You know, they were just so open as a culture to new ideas in the internet marketing space and new processes, new ways of doing things and meeting the customer's needs. You know, the subscription business in of itself really is focused on how do we maintain our clientele? How do we maintain our customers and our subscriptions and keep everyone engaged over time? And that insight really provides a great background into business overall and how technology should meet their client and customer needs. It's a great foundation for the way that you should be approaching what technology brings to an enterprise level organization. And then I moved into a very different time in my life. I got married. I had 2 children, only a year apart, and things changed dramatically.
Oh, okay.
Born, and about 6 months later, I found out that my son was on his way. It's interesting. A woman's life really ebbs and flows, you know, and I was very much in a position to embrace all of that. It was a very special time, and I made the decision to do that. And I stayed home with them for the first 4 years of their lives. Once my son was born, my mother passed away shortly thereafter, and my brother came to live with us. It was a decision that my husband and I made, and we felt that it was the best decision to make at the time. And so very quickly, we were parents of 3.
Wow. So how old were your youngest one, your 2, and how old was your brother at the time then?
Well, my daughter was almost 2 years. My son was just born, and my brother was 12.
Wow.
So we were on the cusp of having a teenager and 2 infants, pretty much. Very, very lively household for what it was, and the blessings that, you know, came out of that time in our lives. I think it wasn't something that we could have foreseen, and it definitely gave our relationship a lot more depth at the time. To see my brother now, you know, he's in his 3rd year of law school at Fordham University, and he is just an amazing man, you know, and we love him dearly. And it was a defining moment for us in our marriage, absolutely. And, you know, the kids are in love with their uncle. So many of the things that he does with them, it was very similar to what, you know, I did and what we did when he was younger. So it's just a wonderful family continuum that we have. And after that, I moved back into the workspace after 4 or 5 years.
Can we backtrack for a second with that, if you mind? Because before we go back into the work, before we go back to the work, you know, because I think I just kind of want to, that's amazing what you did, you know, of course, you know, taking on raising your brother at a time when you've got such a young family. And there's something you said that it was a defining moment for you in your marriage. What was it that you learned about each other when you did that? It was the question that came to mind, you and your husband.
We learned that we make a great team.
Mm.
We are really soulmates. We are truly soulmates. And we just know what is needed. And I think that is so important in a marriage and in a union, is to be connected with that deep level of understanding of the other person, and also understanding what God's plan is for your life and how you bring joy and how you impact others around you, and really being selfless and understanding legacy, understanding what your responsibilities are from a familial standpoint, as well as believing in yourself, purposeful parenting. We are purposeful parents. Yes. We take the position very seriously. It was interesting in that we had so many opportunities in our 18 years of marriage to see the different layers of one another, which is a blessing in of itself. In seeing the talents of your spouse and seeing them play these very poignant roles throughout their lives, together, I think is very special. Yeah. And we've seen so much of that. We work together, we have a business together, we observe each other in this parent role and see that aspect as well. The passion that we bring to each of these different spaces is really, really interesting. and a blessing to see and observe over in your lifetime.
That's so wonderful. That is so wonderful, really.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then, so you mentioned, of course, that you work together, you have a business together. So tell us about that, because there are some people who would be like, you spend your time working together, like you spend so much time together. I mean, you say you're a great team. For some people, that would be a recipe for not being great on the team, right? So it's doesn't appear to be that's the case for you. So what is it that you do in your business, and how did that come about? Because you had to leave a job, presumably, to work together.
When I got back into my career, after being at home, I actually went into a consulting role, but for a company called Fujitsu International, which provided business consulting across different areas of technology. And I came in actually in a very, very strategic role, not having been in the business, in the office for quite a few years, as a senior business consultant. My understanding at the time was, very different in terms of consulting, and I realized that there is so much opportunity in being a consultant and really bringing expertise to the table that is very well received from the clients who basically went out and sought after your expertise.
Right.
So my first introduction to consulting was really through Fujitsu. And at the time, my husband was at IBM, and he made the transition from IBM with a few other partners to begin a consulting firm. He was doing that for a few years, and I realized shortly thereafter at my time at Fujitsu that this is something that I can do. They were encouraging me for some time to join the company. And so when I realized, we can achieve the same thing that you can through another corporation. You can do it for yourself,
right,
and be very successful. I made the transition. As I said, I'm a planner. I am very organized, and I kind of like to have all of my ducks in a row. So this was a very different approach or space. I never even considered this being part of my career. Mm-hmm. And it's been very, very successful. So we specialize in different areas. He specializes in cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. At a government and Fortune 500 enterprise-wide level, really giving them policy and the framework in which they need to follow to protect their data and their company overall from cyber attacks, et cetera. And then I focus in implementing large-scale applications, software, and services to global enterprise companies as well.
Right.
And we're doing this across all industries, from transportation to entertainment and media, advertising technology, finance is a huge aspect or industry that we work within.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it's really just been a wonderful, wonderful endeavor. So we're not working at the same companies at the same time,
Right.
typically. It's been working very, very well.
One of the things you said in terms of the decision to kind of transition into joining the business that your husband and the partners had set up was that we could work and do the same work that we do for other organizations for our own entity, and then put that effort in and then produce a company that's a successful company for yourself. And the way that you say that, I think, is really helpful in having people see that, people go to work every day, and not everyone's built to be an entrepreneur or wants to do that because they want the quote unquote security. I'm putting in quotation marks because, there's never any certainty anyway when you work with an organization, but there's perceived certainty that, the level of effort that you put in is you can do that and be successful. It's different, and it requires a different relationship to your everyday work, and you have to generate so much more because you're the one who's generating the work. There's not kind of work being generated for you, if in a way. But,
you're playing the role of an engagement manager as you're delivering on a current project.
Yeah.
That cycle is continuous, and they're always working in parallel, But it makes for a very dynamic life. I love it. I love always having a new opportunity on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
I love, being able to add value over a continuous, time frame within the current clients that we're at. We're renowned and well known for, having extended contracts renewed several years over, just really meeting and exceeding the expectation of our clients over the past few years. It's really, really important to understand that you can do that, and that is something that you don't necessarily need a corporation behind you to give you that validity.
Right. The validity comes from you, like
Absolutely.
Your relationship to yourself. I wanted to talk about, there's a couple things that's kind of popping now. Like, there's one is about what is that relationship to yourself and how would you define that? But the other question that I'm holding is, as a woman in tech, what does that look like and feel like for you? Because it's, as we said at the beginning, it's still a unique space. There's still not enough women in tech, and there's the whole push for STEM or STEAM now, we say, because arts are still important and critical. Share with us some of that in terms of your experience as a woman in tech, and then also your thoughts on your relationship to yourself in that, and how they probably are connected and how you operate in the space.
My relationship to myself in very male-dominated space, as women, we are not told, we're not given the direction that we are a very necessary element of a corporation that is meeting the needs of people. If you are meeting the needs of people and you are providing a service or delivering to our society, we need to be part of the building of that. We obviously have to represent that perspective, even at a corporate level. And without that is a very skewed outcome. It is not the most or ideal approach you want to take on building a successful business, organization, anything that will really serve society as a whole. And that is key. If you don't have that person in the room, it's very hard to meet the needs of who you're trying of that same group of people outside of the room. And it's a very simple concept, but for some reason, it's not the way that we approach technology and communicating to other females or younger females that might not be aware of this in the space. It took me a little bit to really distill that and come up with why I bring value to the table, quoting Sheryl Sandberg, why I have a seat at the table, and I should occupy that seat because I'm the best person for that, regard to my talents and in this technology business facing role. When I look at why we don't have a lot of females in that is also, you lead by example. More of us need to come out and say, technology is not just about coding. It's not just about being behind a computer. There are many different avenues in technology that you can really participate in and take part in, where your talents might be of great need, even though you're not necessarily building the application itself. That does not have to be the only avenue that you take in this space. And so I have recognized that over the decades, we have improved tremendously in that. We have Girls Who Code, going back to coding, but again, that is not the only area that we can really contribute to in technology. And for me, I actually love the more executive business facing role, building teams, understanding resource management, understanding what it takes to implement transformative initiatives within a company, because every transformative initiative within a company now requires technology as its supporting foundation. Right. The majority of the budget will most likely be between technology and resources, right? Understanding that my talents in that and change management, et cetera, is really what defined my position and what I do now at a much larger scale.
Right. Like, so when you're walking in a room, you really are clear about why you're there, why you've got a seat at the table, and what you're bringing. And then having that level of confidence as well as competence that has people relate to you in a different way than if you're in the space and you have any doubts about your right to be there.
Exactly. And, it's a continuum. It's a growth, right? You don't start there. It's something that you definitely gain and build and, ensuring that you're doing the things that will bring you that growth. Taking the stretch projects, moving, from a space of being in a secure, role at a company versus starting your own business and kind of going out on your own. All of those are real stretch assignments,
right?
Stretch assignments of life, right? And embracing that also and taking on those challenges is what will lead you to that space of confidence and exposure that is required for you to really bring, a very unique talent into these environments.
I love that, that we, when you call them stretch assignments in life, and that it reminds me of like the moment when your brother came to live with you was a stretch assignment,
That was a stretch assignment.
The son arriving, your second child arriving just a year later was a stretch assignment from the first baby. We have these stretch assignments, and it's like, what's the gap that we're creating that we need to kind of reach into to develop ourselves? And if we're not creating those stretch assignments for ourselves in our life, then we're not going to expand and we're not going to grow. So sometimes life will give you stretch assignments.
Yes. And embracing them.
And embracing them.
The formula, yes.
Right. And then others are, you create the stretch assignment, like, for example, deciding to leave your job and join the business was a stretch assignment. So then if you look at all of the things that you've done or where you are today, one of the things that I'm asking all my guests is, what has been the most courageous moment or a courageous moment in your life? Something and courageous moments for me is when you take an action for yourself or on behalf of another that is a heartfelt action and has obviously some concern and some fear that you've stepped over or you carry with you as you take the action. So what comes to mind when I ask you that question?
I would say I have several. One would be really deciding on my life partner, my husband, making that decision, that was a very, very important decision for me. And I felt like your life is really defined on these big decisions. And if you go wrong, you can really change the trajectory of your life. And
Right.
so there are some things that I put so much weight on. And I felt that that was a courageous moment, was to say, I found the right one and that's my decision, and
Right.
I'm very much confident in the fact that this is a blessing. God, brought him to me, and I believe that he's the right one, essentially. I would say another courageous moment would be when I found out that I was having my son six
Right.
months after my first my first child was born. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, you know. But I am so very much up for the blessings that's coming my way. But I was definitely very surprised. I'll leave it
Yes.
at that. Shortly thereafter, my brother joining me. I mean, that entire period of time, I think, was required just a very high level of courage and understanding that I knew what the right decisions were to make at that time. And I had faith in myself. I believed in myself, and I believed in those critical decisions that were made. Now, going into a different phase where my children are going into becoming teens, etc. We had lived in Florida for a few years when they were younger. Actually, when I was a stay-at-home mom, we were in Florida, and the opportunity arose for me to move into this senior business consulting position in New York City. And that was a decision to say, we have such a fabulous life in Florida. It's like a perpetual vacation.
Right.
At that time, my husband was global executive at IBM, so he could live anywhere and traveled a lot of the time. And to make that decision to say, well, we have the flexibility, let's do it now. The kids will, go to school in the Northeast. We were very familiar with the educational system here. And that move, again, to come back to the Northeast, I think was a very courageous decision. Having confidence and taking on those stretch assignments, it definitely brings a lot of depth and growth to your life. So I'm glad I embraced them and had those experiences.
Yeah. As you were sharing, and coming back to that moment where where you've got suddenly your parents of three overnight. The other thing that struck me is, of course, then simultaneously you're grieving the loss of your mom,
Yes.
as well. And at different stages in life for you and your brother, coping with that loss. And so it's huge. It's huge to do that all. And then what that part, and then what that gave you in terms of your partnership and seeing how much you are a team together and how soulmates. And so there was so much that came from that. So I really want to just thank you for sharing that with us as well, and just kudos to you for whatever it took for you to really, not just get through it, because it's just more, it's the what you shared is there's so much that came out of it. There were so many gifts that came out of it as well. So you did more than get through it, You
Yes.
you really did so great with it, So I just really thank you for sharing that.
Sure. And these are, when you're posed with a question that is or requires you to provide a perspective on your experiences in life, I think it is important to realize that that's what makes you unique.
Yeah.
Those experiences is what makes you who you are. Those experiences provides the character in your life, if that's a good way of expressing it. When posed with the question, is there anything that you would do differently? I always say, absolutely not. I would do everything the same way, because it's the story that I want to tell my grandkids. I want to have something to tell them. I want to have something that I can pass on and say, listen, if I was able to do this, this, and this, you should be able to do that and 10 times more.
Right.
That's what my grandmothers did for me. That is what, our elders do. And, it's building a legacy that it all lines into understanding what that means for not only yourself, but for the family members around you and those who will come after you.
Right, right. It's a great way to end our time together because, yeah, it's just so beautifully said. I'm not going to say any more questions. I just love how you just said that. So thank you. I want to just really thank you for spending the time with me and with us and just sharing your experiences in your work experiences as well as outside, and your wisdom in all that you've traveled so far. So just thank you.
Thank you for having me on your She's Got Drive podcast. It has been great. I was highly anticipating it, and thank you for your ability to share all of our experiences. The podcast is just phenomenal, and I've listened to so many of them, and in each I can connect and resonate with messages that we share, and I think that's so important for us as women. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. It's great.
Yay.
I hope that you've been inspired to shift gears in your own life. I loved my conversation with Michele because we covered so much, of course. I suppose one of the heartfelt moments for me was her sharing the choice that her and her husband made to, raise her younger brother, who was 12 years old at the time, of her mum passing. And I can't imagine that moment where you've lost your mum. I imagine that moment because I've experienced that. But lost your mum, and then you've just had 2 children yourself, and then you raise your 12-year-old brother, and you go from, in a very short space of time, parents of 3, and that you embrace that moment for what it is, and you take yourself on as a partnership, and you get stronger from it. And so I so appreciated Michele sharing that with us, and there's so much there. And I love the notion of the stretch assignment, that life gives you stretch assignments, and then how do you respond to that stretch assignment? So sometimes we give ourselves stretch assignments, which we ought to be doing. If you want to, keep growing, you have to create a gap. So we give ourselves stretch assignments. How are we going to meet that? But then life gives us stretch assignments. And so that was a real powerful example when life gives you that, and how do you respond to that? And then what's the gift in that? And what's the joy in that too? So I appreciate Michele for sharing. And it had a huge impact on me. If you want to get in contact with me, please do. You can reach me on my Instagram, through my direct messages. You can go through She's Got Drive Facebook pages, or you can send a message on shirleymcalpine.com/contact me. Please remember to rate and review the show and share the show. How about finding one person that you just share the show with this week? Think about one person in your life who you think, there's a black woman, she's going to love this show. Or there's my friend, she's going to love that show. Or there's my friend, he might love that show too. There's my friend, they might love that show. Share the show. Thank you so much if you do that. And thank you so much for being a listener of She's Got Drive. She's Got Drive is produced by Cassandra Voltalina. The music is by the awesome or female band Blonde. The song is called Circles. Until next time, go well and stay well.